Welcome to my April reading wrap up. I read 6 books in the month of April. Would I recommend them? What were my ratings, my thoughts? I'm also gonna chat about my May TBR. Let's dive into it. I know we're already 9 days into May, but I'm still gonna talk about my TBR, the book that I'm currently reading, books. I should say. I am in the middle of reading 3 books at the moment. For so long, I was like, I don't know how people read multiple books at once. Like, that sounds absolutely impossible. But if you're reading different genres, that helps to divide up the stories, at least in my own mind. It would be like watching different shows. I have typically like 2 or 3 other ones going on. To start my month, I finished Vow of Thieves, which is the second book in the Dance of Thieves duology. This takes place in the Remnant universe. So if you've read the Remnant Chronicles, that is a prequel trilogy to the Dance of Thieves duology, which I personally highly recommend reading first. I think that it makes the Dance of Thieves duology make so much more sense, and you're connected to the characters in a way that you wouldn't be had you not read those first 3. This was such a satisfying end to this duology. I fell even more in love with Jason Causey, their story, but the way that the book started, I was like, can we please just have like 100 pages of peace before we just jump into some chaotic storyline, please? After the first book ended, I found myself thinking, okay, so what is going to happen with the second book? What is the plot going to look like? Am I going to like it as much as the first book? This is a 5-star duology for me. I am just so in love with this world and these characters. I want to live in this world. I want to be friends with these characters. In fact, if Mary E. Pearson wrote nothing but books in the Remnant universe, I would continue to read them. I would not get sick of being in this world. In fact, the way that this book ended, it definitely left a window open, in my opinion, for future books that could happen in this series. In fact, I feel like you could just follow different characters and their storylines. I would highly recommend these books. The next book that I read, which emotionally damaged a part of my soul, which like what book in the Hunger Games universe doesn't do that? Sunrise on the Reaping was devastating. I don't think that I've ugly sobbed like that since I read The Nightingale, quite honestly. Very different book, very different genre. The way that I was actually just crying and sobbing, I woke up the next day and my eyes were so puffy. My husband was like, "Are you okay?" No. I'm not okay. I don't think I ever will be okay. I got stuck on the side of book platforms that were like this book with Hamilton edits. Devastating. Who in their right mind decided to do that? That is so sad, so messed up. My gosh. But this book was amazing and beautiful and tragic and everything that you want in a book. It explored Hamish's games. We already know that Hamish wins, so that's not a spoiler. But it's crazy that despite knowing that everybody dies, because Hamish is the victor, so we know that has to happen, it is still so gut-wrenching how those deaths happen. What Snow put this man through. How could you ever be a Snow sympathizer? I don't understand. If you are a fan of the Hunger Games, you need to read this story. Also, the movie comes out next November, so quite honestly, that gives you enough time to read this book and get caught up on the entire universe. You can probably hear my son in the background. He is currently climbing on this table right next to me, just chit-chatting away. I only rated this book 4 stars because there was just some parts where I'm like, I wish that could have been elaborated on more. And I think I actually would have wanted to know more about after his games and his experiences with other tributes. Having read the other books, I think I just was a little bit more critical going into this. But it is still so incredible. What are you saying? Trying to film with a toddler is absolutely chaotic. And so he's just pretending to talk on the phone right now. Yeah, totally. Keeping the emotional roller coaster going, I then read Fearless. I think that this book had a lot of mixed reviews on the internet and from people within the fandom and other readers of this series. There were definitely parts of the story that could have been elaborated on more, or they just felt so redundant. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Kai, but there were parts of his character development that just felt stifled and could have been developed more, I thought. Again, in my own opinion, don't come for me. I love this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. Yes, there definitely were parts of this book that could have been better, but there's also other components that I really loved. If you watched my April reading vlog, give more behind the scenes looks to what I'm feeling while I'm actually reading certain parts of this book. I thought that the addition of the animals within this world having powers and being like mutated was actually like a really cool component that Lauren put into this story. And I did appreciate seeing a different part of this world, which I'm hoping that Lauren writes more stories within this universe, and then maybe we get like cameos of Kai and Pei and the whole rest of the cast. I definitely found myself crying during this book as well. If you've gotten to this part of the trilogy, you already know about Adina, and she really just haunts this entire narrative. It is sad and emotional, and the way that she influences so many decisions that are made. My heart just hurt for Pei and then Mac, and that entire scene in the arena. Hello. Will say that I don't think any of the books, book 2 or book 3 or the novella, had the same effect on me that the first book did, but I still very much enjoyed all of them. I enjoyed this series, and I can't wait to see what else Lauren Roberts writes in the future. The other 3 books that I read were on my Kindle. Read Enchantra, which is the second book to Phantasma and the Wicked Games series. I thought that this book was just a good time, much like the first book was. I didn't go into it expecting it to be anything different than what I've read with other books. I went into it thinking that it was going to be a good time, it was going to be fun, quick paced, have a little bit of spice that I just needed, and that is exactly what it was. That's where it delivered on. I will say that I personally think that the first book, Phantasma, was better in my opinion. I think that I liked Ophelia more just for different reasons than Genevieve, but I still like both of their stories. I think that Enchantra just felt so much like the first book in a way that it was hard for me to rate it higher than Phantasma. The way that it ended made me very curious as to what the next book is going to be about. I mean, I guess we have an idea of what it's going to be about, but more so from whose perspective. Gosh, I'm hoping that it's Seven, because I personally love him. He reminded me so much of Emmett from the Twilight books. That's just who I was picturing as Seven, and I loved Emmett in Twilight, and so I clearly loved his character. I think I actually liked him more than the main male character, Rowan. Reading a book that is entertaining, a fun time, then I highly recommend Enchantra. What I needed after having so many emotional books back to back with Vow of Thieves, even though that ended positively, but then going into Sunrise on the Reaping and Fearless, it was like, just give me something fun. I read 2 arcs this month. I read Folklore Forever and The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy. Folklore Forever came out at the very beginning of April, so I actually finished this earlier in the month. I started out enjoying it, and then it just took a turn, and I felt myself getting lost. I want you to picture the main female character, Zelda, in this book as Luna Lovegood, because that's essentially how it felt. The writing style, the inner monologues that the character was having, just who she was as a person, just felt very much like Luna Lovegood. You know, in the way that, like, I think we all love Luna Lovegood, but she's so quirky and just different, and sometimes you're like, what are you saying? But yet you're so intrigued that you want to understand, like, where is she coming up with these ideas and these things. That's kind of how Zelda felt. As a reader, it just felt too chaotic for me personally, and I did not like the main male character. I thought he was so insufferable. Girl, how do you even remotely find yourself attracted to this man? He just seems rude and full of himself, and he was using you to gain your powers. Fortunately, I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe if you do like characters like Luna Lovegood, then it could be a great read for you. The writing style just felt a little all over the place and a little chaotic, and jumping through scenes and what was going on just did not seem to flow as nicely, which makes me sad because anytime I get an arc, I want to review it so positively because I feel as if I'm letting the author down, but I also know that it's a disservice not to give an authentic and honest review. I don't know. That's definitely like my people-pleasing qualities really trying to take over right now. I then read The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy, and I love this. I was not expecting to love it the way that I did. It comes out in July, so make sure you're adding it to your TBR, especially if you're a fan of characters like Draco and Hermione. This story apparently was based on a fanfic of Hermione and Draco. I never read it. I have heard that's what it was based on, and then the story got reworked and the author published it into the story that we have today, The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy. I'll be honest, it took me about 30% of the way into the book to really get hooked. Maybe I did myself a disservice by not having read the fanfic, so I didn't know what to really expect and what the author's writing style would be like. But at the same time, I think it just took me a little bit to settle in and adjust my expectations of what I thought this book was going to be. This book is very much a rom-com, sitcom type of feeling with a low-stakes plot. It didn't feel as if I was reading this that it was like super serious. We need to like banish darkness from the world and save this kingdom. I don't know, just lower stakes. It wasn't that serious, and I actually really appreciated that, again, after having such heavy, serious reads earlier in the month. I was actually laughing out loud while reading this book. The humor there is very adult-like the innuendos that are used. And it's just so silly and ridiculous, but it works really well. I don't think that this book is going to be for everybody. I think some people are going to read it and be like, what was that? What did I just read? And I think other people are going to be like, this is hilarious. Very much enjoy all the characters in this book. I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a split review when it comes to this story. I personally would recommend it. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I thought it was hilarious. It was fun. The banter was dry, but it was witty. And the 2 characters were just really enjoyable. Like, they truly were enemies. Finding that attraction and dare I say, love for one another. If you're a fan of enemies to lovers tropes, you should definitely be giving this book a try. Okay, I need to get all cozy really quick. Let's talk about my May TBR. Realistically, I only read about 6 books a month. I'm gonna have 8 books on my TBR just for options. I'm a mood reader, so I need to have the options there for me. So these are the 8 books that I plan on attempting to read this month. Well, for sure, get 6 of them, I believe. Like I had said at the very beginning of this video, we are on day 9 of May. So we're already into this month. I've already completed a book. I am partway through 3 other books at the moment. And I read Voice of the Ocean. So I'm not even going to add that into the books that are on the rest of my May TBR because that's already been completed and done. The rest of these books, I have Starsight on here. It's the second book in the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson. I read Skyward in February. I believe it was February or March. The series is very sci-fi, alien focused, starship, space, anything space themed. That is what this series is. I took some time in between the first book and the second book because, like I said, I'm a mood reader. I need to be in the mood to read a book like that. Definitely reads on the YA side of things, but an enjoyable story nonetheless. I want to get through this entire series either this month or I'm going to read the final books in June. Then we have A Dance of Lives. This is an arc. It comes out the first week of June. I'm about 60% of the way through the book right now as I'm recording. I am actually very much enjoying this book. It's all about a former dancer who was accused of murdering one of the king's courtmen, is thrown into jail for 2 years and then is taken out by that king who threw her in there, even though he knows that she didn't commit the murder, but wants to use her to infiltrate other courts around the kingdom for espionage, plant seeds and lies and work for him in order to earn her freedom and her exoneration from her crimes. It's actually a debut fantasy novel by the author. There is just so much deception in this book. 3 highly anticipated books that I have for this month that just came out or are about to come out: Silver Elites, Shield of Sparrows, and The Knight and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, which she wrote One Dark Window, and I absolutely love that duology. So Rachel, I cannot wait to read this book. Silver Elite has been all over my book feeds. I'm sure it's probably been all over yours as well, to the point where it almost feels like, is this a big marketing ploy or is this book actually that good? Is it really going to be the next big dystopian novel? We're gonna find out. Same with Shield of Sparrows. I'm hearing that this is supposed to be the romantasy book of the year. That is a huge praise to have on a book. If you go on Goodreads, it's like a 4.6 star rating right now, which is actually insane. The goal is to go and get those books this weekend and then shoot a reading vlog on them all next week. Other books that I'm hoping to get through this month are Shadow of the Gods. I started this in April. I needed just to take a break from it. I got about 20% of the way in. It's a good story. The world building is superb. I'm very much enjoying it. But you have to actually be like locked in to read this book. And when I started, it just was, toddler is just chaotic and a wild child in the type of way where I'm exhausted at the end of the day, mentally and physically, because we are running all day around the house and outside and everything. So I was like, I just need to take a break from this and jump back in when I feel more mentally refreshed. So hopefully I will get that done in May. And then I have The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson. Like I said, if she writes it, I'm going to read it. I have it on loan through the Libby app right now, and so that's why it's on my priority list to read this month, as well as Defy the Night. Amazing things about this trilogy, so I cannot wait to get into it. Again, it's on loan from Libby. I just like to get through my library books when I have them. I know I say it every single time that like the next month is going to be such a good reading month, because it is. I'm really enjoying the books that I'm reading, and I've learned that if I'm not enjoying them, I just DNF them. Life is too short to continue reading books that you just don't enjoy. So many other books on my TBR that I want to get to, so if I'm not liking a book, I'm just gonna hop in and read other books that are on my TBR. Let this be your sign to do that as well. I hope everybody has the best reading month in May. I would love to know what you guys are reading, so please comment the books that you have on your priority of a TBR. I'll see you at the end of May to wrap up this month's reading. Bye, book friends. Happy reading.